Our next presentation this morning will be from Etisalat. Etisalat is a leading provider in the United Arab Emirates. And I have two speakers actually listed on the bio here. Are you both coming up, sirs, or is there just one? Okay, so I believe, are you Ali Al-Kaf? Okay, so first, Mr. Ali Al-Kaf will start. Ali is a Senior Director of Emerging Technologies at Etisalat and responsible for the Cloud, NFV and SDN program. And then afterwards, Mr. Eslam Kandiel will join, and Eslam is a Network Architecture Manager, and he's the lead architecture for Etisalat's UAE NFV and SDN program. So please go ahead, Ali. Do you require some assistance with the slides there?
Yeah, I use this. Thank you. Yeah, the second one. Okay.
Just perhaps do a check. It is going back and forth.
Yeah.
Yes, okay, good. Thank you.
Thanks. So, hello everyone. My first public presentation. Woohoo! No, actually it's not, but just one.
Very good.
Fun. Anyone here doesn't know Etisalat? All right, everybody, so I can skip this slide anyway, save some time. So we started off in 1976, and we're a multi-service operator in the Middle East, based in Abu Dhabi in the UAE. And I'll just quickly, this is the timeline of interest to me is actually right here. We started our dabbling and playing with NFV and SDN around this time in 2014. And this year, actually, I'm happy to launch our program that we called Sahab. Sahab in Arabic means cloud. It's like, I think, nuage in French, which means cloud, I guess. And the message behind the program is that it's like sort of a MTP, massive transformative purposes, millions of people, billions of things, infinite possibilities. And we're trying to, we've designed the program to be more of a holistic program, covering all aspects of the organization, not just technology. As you can see here, these are the POCs that helped shape our thinking across these past 2 years. We've done virtual PC, virtual CPE, and service chaining, GI LAN service chaining, a lot of things in terms of virtualization of specific functions. And we're currently actually building our first horizontal NFVI in the company. And hopefully we're going to finish this year in Q1. And in terms of portfolio of projects that we are focusing on for the future, this is basically a summary or categorization of these projects or initiatives, let's say. So software platform, reworking or revamping the workplace or the culture, and of course energy and education. And I'm just, for the sake of time, actually we have 20 slides, so it's like I'm trying to go at a rate of 1 slide per minute. And so I'm going to talk only about the 3 parts. Software, everything is, software is becoming king, everything is becoming software defined, so we understand that. And before even I delve into the other parts of my, our presentation is that everybody says it, I mean the cultural part of changing within an organization seems to be the most challenging, the most difficult, and the most important. And I keep hearing that before even starting with NFV and SDN, but now I can say firsthand it is. It's one of the most difficult aspects of change. So I thought it would be technology. I thought it would be, the challenges would be more technical. We focus a lot of time on solving the issues, you know, with OpenStack and integration between different vendors. But it turns out that the cultural part or the way we work seems to be the most challenging and the most difficult to change. And in terms of platform, we aim to be more of a platform rather than just a pipe. So we want to attract community. We want to make users both creators and customers. And we want to leverage big data and analytics. We're big on cognitive learning and robotics and artificial intelligence. That's something that we want to focus for the future, kind of leap to that kind of future. And we're big on gamification, even within the company, for our employees and for customers. In terms of work, of course, this is just a caricature, so use traditional ways, use the same tools, you'll get the same results. So we want our program actually is aiming to kind of change the way we work and the tools we use to get different results or better results, hopefully. This is, I don't know if you've read the book Fast and Slow Thinking by Kahneman. I mean, it's interesting. I think he talks about it within the context of the brain or the human brain. But in our organization, or any organization, I guess, it's like there's two systems. One system is more high performance, fine-tuned sports car. They're fast, efficient, they're very reactive. They almost autopilot in their activities. And they interrogate new ideas. Anything comes up, they interrogate it. And they fear mistakes. So that's system one. And system two, they're like little kids who want to experiment. They're very deliberate. They embrace uncertainty and complex thinking. And instead of interrogating new ideas, they actually interrogate assumptions. So they actually ask why things are done and seek inspiration. So both systems, what I'm trying to say is that both systems need to coexist harmoniously. It's like kind of a yin-yang in any organization. And we kind of see that DevOps seems to be a way to kind of make that work. I mean, smaller teams within the organization, having them like self-contained, and involving both the planning and the engineering and the operations side of things, the product marketing. So we believe that's kind of the way forward for NFV and SDN and digital services in our organization. In terms of technical principles, we kind of try to preach. So within even our RFPs, our technical presentations, we focus on these 4 principles: open source, industry standards, maximum abstraction. So we really like this idea of decoupling hardware and software. White boxes are a sexy term for us. And of course, APIs, open APIs and microservices are very attractive, and it's something that we are always talking about. In terms of roadmap for the program, this is just an overview of the program. So we're building the NFVI infrastructure within the organization and live, of course. And we're working with different vendors to have on board their functions on top of this NFVI. And part of the challenges is actually working out the operational model and the DevOps for it, continuing the different tools that we use for deployment, for the DevOps, and the VNF certification process. Ultimately, what we want is that vendors don't need to talk to us directly. They just go to a portal, post their VNF, test it, in 2-3 days they get the result. And that would be awesome before they talk to us. And next, just as an example of, for example, the DevOps setup, which maybe many organizations find challenging to implement and have them in place. And this is just an example. Of note is the functions here. We kind of thought of separating the architect's role to 2 different areas. One is customer-facing, one is network-facing. So the network-facing thinks about the infrastructure, the NFV, SDN technologies per se. They tend to interact more with the OSS, I think, side of things. That's how I'm thinking. And the service orchestrator, or the virtual service architect, interacts more with the product marketing, with the services side of things, and the BSS. So we thought this would be ideal. And we created a center of excellence. It's a center of virtualization excellence. Of course, virtualization is not all about, it's not just NFV and SDN, but I thought the term would be cool, so the COVE. And moving on to my colleague, he's our architect in the NFV SDN program, and he's going to talk about actually that part, the architecture part. Thank you.
Thank you, Ali.
Good morning, everyone. I will try to keep the rate of 1 slide per minute as much as possible.
That's great, thank you. We have about 7 minutes.
Oh, I need to decrease.
Okay.
We believe that the architecture of SDN and NFV should, of course, include the hardware and software, your blueprint of hardware and software. But you need to consider your applications, and the application need to consider the marketing. Exactly like the previous presentation, we agree this is including our marketing colleagues in the process is something very important. And this is, like my colleague said, we need to consider the DevOps as well. business processes and scale-up plan. All of these things need to be incorporated in order to consider the holistic view of the architecture. The requirements for NAV architecture is in Etisalat is, I think, similar to all of the operators. We need to have a platform that can handle different services. We need to consider the exponential traffic growth, which is happening in our network, and it will happen as well for the NAVI. Flexibility and time to market, this is what NAV promised. And of course, the cost, we need to consider the cost as well. And in order to consider this, in Etisalat, we believe in having a solid aggregation network. This aggregation network is connected to all access transport technologies and bringing all the services. We believe that the best location for having the NAVI is in this aggregation layer. Of course, you need to consider as well the service locations you have now, and you need to be connected, to connect the NAVI to this service location. This will help you in the migration. At the same time, we believe in the standard leaf spine architecture. Servers, maybe the spine switch is not necessary in each and every site. Like we saw in the Congress, the cloud edge computing projects and the new applications coming to the edge. Maybe the top of the rack switch would be enough for this. You need to consider the nature of signaling and data plane application. Storage, especially if you are using the safe storage, so you have to consider the storage, and you have a surplus capacity in the future. In order to achieve the flexibility and easy time to market, you have to be generous with your switching. You have to have surplus. We believe you have to have a surplus switching ports to integrate any new blades or servers very fast. We believe as well in the fluid architecture. And instead of having a big function, centralized function, try to break it down into smaller and distribute it in the aggregation as much as possible. This is, of course, will be very aligned with data plane applications. Maybe for the signaling plane application, it will not be the same. In order to compensate for the latency, you need to decrease the number of hops as much as possible. Again, this is a comparison between the vertical approach and horizontal approach. We believe that a horizontal approach is more complex. However, it's regarding for the future. Vertical approach, yes, it's faster time to market. You have a single responsibility with the vendor. However, this is in the future when you have a multiple application, you will have a multiple servers, you have a multiple application. All of this together will make it complex in the long term, not regarding on long term. This is a simple framework we have in Etisalat in order to select which application to start with at the beginning. Simply, this framework is balancing between customer needs and network needs. Customer need innovation, need flexible charging, need personalization, network need scalability, agility, cost optimization. However, we believe we are in the early phases of the NFV. We suggested to start with niche applications, don't to start with the mainstream applications, and start with applications that will help you to make a capacity of load. Applying this framework to our projects, we selected the first application to be the fixed LTE EPC. Fixed LTE is simply LTE TDD technology running on 3.5 gigahertz frequency. This is available only for small number of users where there is rural areas, there is no fiber coverage. This will help us. We are in the integration phases, actually, so the final integration phases. This helps us to decrease the load, the capacity over the existing mobile EPC. And this is some small lesson learned. We are still learning while we are moving forward from this project. Simply, we see this as hardware is something important you have to consider. But CPU is not the only important thing for the servers. We believe, especially for data plane application, the network interface card is much more important as well. SRIUV is a very good technology. However, it will limit your cloud capability. But it is fine to be as a start point. Consider the 40 gig interfaces, a new generation coming to the servers for the new network interface cards. I'm finishing. It will be. I think it will be very good hardware piece. Again, consider that you will have a huge demand for network interfaces. Consider to have a surplus PCI Express cards. We try to be close to the white boxes as much as possible. We believe NVO is something very important to have an overall architecture. However, we managed to start without the NVO and tweak the VNF manager to do some of NVO architecture functionality. Sorry. This is something, of course, eventually we will have our NVO, but we started without the NVO. Try to be committed to the openness as much as possible. Try to select the vendor who built his VNF based on the cloud technology. Something to compare the performance with hyper-threading and without hyper-threading. High number of cores versus high-frequency cores. All of these tests will help you to select the vendor who is really built his VNF based on the cloud technology. And try to be agnostic from the middleware and hardware. To wrap up, we see this as architecture is something really very important. However, we see the architecture from the holistic point of view, which is integrate everything in the company together to get this architecture. You have to have the willingness inside the organization to transform, and the transform is not easy. We see that as you have to make your hands dirty. You have to make a lot of integration by yourself. And the experience we had from the live integration is really much different than we got from the BOCs. So try to be committed to something live as much as possible. Thank you very much, and I hope I didn't exceed my time.
That was fantastic. Well done. Thank you, Islam. I wanted to say partway through Shvaya Shvaya, which means slowly, slowly. Yes, that was very interesting. Thank you very much, Islam and Ali. Are there any questions from the floor before we proceed to our next speaker? Gentleman at the front here.
Thank you. So I'm just again asking questions. So I recognize that you presented the list of your POC. It was 4 POC for business VCP. And it's quite a sexy topic. So everybody talking about this. We have even a session in the first day. What was driving you through this experience? What kind of lessons can you learn, and any ideas or any result that you can share about VCP for business?
All right, I'll just share a few interesting bits. One of the things is that actually within our organization, I don't know if it's similar to others, but the driver for virtual CPE business was mostly from the technical side. We saw the merits of it from an engineering standpoint, and it was very interesting. So a lot of the POCs in the lab was for virtual CPE for business. And lessons learned, different implementations, very varying. So evaluating all these solutions, the way they are implemented, the way they're structured, the architecture, the different components, how they're decoupled or not. It's very variable. I mean, it's like very difficult to compare between each and every vendor, the different components. And even when you come to the stage of, for example, within RFPs and evaluating these solutions, it becomes challenging. So we try our best to kind of force the vendors to kind of compartmentalize according to the way we understand them, is structured in a certain way. So decoupling, for example, the VNFM from the orchestrator or the what we call the NFVI manager. So that's a function I think it's quite required. I mean, we cannot rely on the orchestrator for everything. So this NFVI manager is also important. And then we can start to kind of comparing. And I think the vendors have been cooperative and very responsive, actually. So that's good. That's it. I hope I answered the questions.
Any more questions from the floor? Well, thank you very much. So our next speaker